Jimmy, on the surface, seemed like a normal guy, very friendly, intelligent, and always surrounded by people, especially girls. He was known as the party guy, famous in his city for throwing around cash and spoiling his friends. Incredibly generous and a really nice guy, he was looking for acceptance, friendship, and companionship in life. However, Jimmy was lonely and was trying to buy friendships, which worked for a while. Unfortunately, this lifestyle was very costly. The money itself wasn't an issue. He happily spent it, but eventually it cost him everything, including his freedom. You see, Jimmy wasn't just a nerdy guy who mined a few bitcoins in 2009, as he told people when they asked how he had so much money. In reality, he was one of the most wanted hackers on the planet. Bitcoin Jimmy had made a ridiculous sum of money by stealing from the world's most infamous illegal website, the Silk Road dark web marketplace. Over 50,000 bitcoins had been in Jimmy's possession since 2012, growing in value year after year while the US government watched. What was initially worth just a few $1,000s eventually grew to a staggering $3.4 billion, an insane amount of money that Jimmy couldn't touch for almost a decade. Instead, he tried to live his best life, filling the void of loneliness in his heart. But eventually, it all came crashing down. His lavish lifestyle became too expensive, and he needed to dip into the stolen Bitcoin. Then, a single mistake, a moment of hubris, and it was all over. Police at the door, floors ripped up, Bitcoin seized, and ultimately, prison. But the story is even crazier than it sounds. To truly understand it, we need to go back to the very beginning. Born in Shanghai, China, but raised in the United States, James Jimmy Zong had a rough upbringing, even rougher than many immigrant children. His father struggled to find work. His mother worked exhausting nursing shifts, and Jimmy himself was mercilessly bullied at school. He was called fat and ugly, physically harassed, humiliated, and left with nowhere to turn, except for the internet. Like many introverted, shy kids before and after him, Jimmy found solace in being a nameless, faceless entity on the web. Online, he could be anybody or nobody, judged only by his skills and knowledge rather than his appearance. He dedicated himself to learning and quickly became a proficient coder. While his technical skills were thriving, everything else in his life continued to push him down a dark path. His parents eventually divorced, leaving him with even less attention than before. No one seemed to care about him, even when he graduated high school and earned a scholarship at Georgia University. This should have been a moment of celebration, but nobody really cared. So, Jimmy did what many would do. He packed his bags and left for greener pastures, saying goodbye to people who held the label of family, but not the sentiment. At university, Jimmy discovered two new loves: alcohol and girls. While he wasn't the most popular kid, he put himself out there and loved to party. But as a broke college student, he faced a problem. Despite the scholarship, he had no money. This is where Bitcoin comes into the picture. In 2009, Jimmy, ever the tech enthusiast, saw the emergence of Bitcoin and was immediately fascinated. Printing money out of thin air on his laptop? Sign him up. He became one of the earliest adopters, mining a significant amount of Bitcoin. But like most early adopters, he eventually lost interest when Bitcoin seemed worthless. That changed drastically when he later discovered they were worth over $30 each. He knew he had thousands of them somewhere, so he frantically searched his laptop. But like many others, he realized too late. He had lost them. Imagine being broke, then suddenly realizing you might have tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars in Bitcoin, only to discover they were lost forever. The heartbreak of what could have been crushed him. He had made the right decisions up until the moment he didn't. Determined to redeem himself, he re-engaged with the Bitcoin community and became deeply involved in discussions about cryptocurrency, the Silk Road, and Bitcoin's traceability. The Silk Road was an anonymous dark web marketplace used primarily for illegal drug transactions, fueled by Bitcoin. Jimmy, already earning money from Bitcoin-related projects and online gambling websites he had built, became fascinated by the Silk Road, not just as a buyer, but as someone analyzing its functionality. Then, In September 2012, he discovered a critical flaw in the Silk Road's withdrawal process. When he attempted to withdraw some Bitcoin in escrow, he noticed that the transaction was processed twice, essentially doubling his money. Testing this further, he deposited 500 Bitcoin, only to receive 3,500 in return. It was essentially an infinite money glitch, but in the real world, he was stealing from none other than the Silk Road's infamous founder, Dread Pirate Roberts. Jimmy took full advantage of this flaw, creating 9 additional accounts to continue siphoning Bitcoin from the marketplace. In total, he walked away with over 50,000 Bitcoin. When the Silk Road's founder contacted him about the issue, Jimmy was not met with threats. Instead, Roberts simply wanted to fix the bug and prevent further losses. Despite this, Jimmy did not return the stolen Bitcoin. Instead, he continued to live a double life, publicly flaunting wealth, throwing extravagant parties, and secretly hiding the truth about his stolen fortune. For years, Jimmy was careful. He understood Bitcoin was traceable, and he made efforts to launder and mix his funds, using various wallets and exchanges to obscure the trail. But there was one problem. Despite having billions in Bitcoin, he couldn't spend it without raising suspicion. Instead, he built an online persona under the alias Loaded, boasting about his wealth on Bitcoin forums, seeking validation. However, his arrogance would be his downfall. In 2019, Jimmy made the mistake that would lead to his capture. A supposed investment opportunity in real estate required a large sum of money, prompting Jimmy to move some of his hidden Bitcoin. Around the same time, he also reported a burglary to the police. Someone had stolen a briefcase containing $400,000 from his home. This drew the attention of the IRS, specifically forensic investigator Trevor Mallon. As investigators scrutinized his finances, they uncovered suspicious transactions linking his Bitcoin to the original Silk Road hack. Authorities spent a year meticulously tracking his movements without his knowledge. Jimmy, completely oblivious, even invited police into his home to discuss the burglary. He boasted about filling briefcases with millions to impress women, logged into his Bitcoin wallet in front of them, and unknowingly provided all the evidence they needed. In November 2021, law enforcement raided his home, discovering multiple hidden stashes, including a small computer concealed inside a popcorn tin in his bathroom closet. In total, they seized 50,676 Bitcoin, worth $3.40 billion. Despite orchestrating one of the biggest cryptocurrency heists in history, Jimmy received a surprisingly light sentence: 1 year and 1 day in federal prison. Released in April 2023, he walked free, albeit without any of his stolen fortune. His story is a tragic yet ironic tale of ambition, loneliness, and self-sabotage. He stole from criminals, became a criminal, and ultimately got caught by reporting a crime. In the end, his thirst for validation and acceptance led to his downfall.